Hey, climbers, welcome back. I hope you guys have enjoyed everything we've done so far in week 4 of Peak. We've had lots of stuff going on. We had our mindfulness session on Monday. We have our workout that was released today, and we also have Erin joining us for Peak Eats this evening. Erin's going to be going over a few different things, including smoothies. So I hope you guys are excited. It's something that you guys asked for and did talk about. So without further ado, Erin, I'll hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful day so far. Thank you so much for joining me again. I am really excited to talk all things smoothies with you guys today. And this is a fun topic for me because I love a good smoothie. They are so great. There's so many advantages to incorporating smoothies in our day-to-day routine. They are such a great way to boost, fruit and veggie intake. I think we all know that we should, be eating more fruits and veggies, and smoothies are such a good way to sneak in a little bit extra without having to eat like a giant mixing bowl worth of salad or something like that. So I love them for that. Great way to boost our nutrition really simply. And you can pack a lot in a smoothie, and it doesn't feel like you're eating a ton of fruits and veggies, which is awesome. They are really, really convenient. They're great for on the go. They're great to bring with you, if you need a snack after a workout or before. There's so many different ways that they can help support you when you're busy and have a lot of activities going on. And we're going to be talking about some ways that you can incorporate them if you are on the go, sort of some best practices. They're really customizable for different needs, which is also great, especially for athletes, right? Especially if we are training, if we're really active, if we're, getting involved in different sports and activities. It's really great to know that we can customize our smoothie recipes to fit our unique needs, whether we're trying to build some muscle or we're trying to make sure our endurance is there for a really hard workout. There's all these different things that we can add into smoothies and really just customize them for our own unique needs. And there's so many different flavor options, which is my favorite part. I love being able to really enjoy healthy eating. Healthy eating should be something that's delicious. And the great thing about smoothies is there's really so many different options to choose from in terms of flavors. So we're definitely going to be talking about all sorts of different ideas and combinations you can work with. So maybe if you had smoothies you just haven't been super in love with before, I'm definitely going to give you some food for thought, some different options that you can play with and find some things that you really like and flavors that really work for you. So all these things put together, smoothies really are just the ultimate fast food, right? We can take them on the go. We can make them work for us. We can make them really delicious. It's all a great thing. So we're going to be going through all the ins and outs. So whether you already love smoothies and are making them a lot, you're going to get a bunch of ideas for new flavor combinations and maybe some different ideas for how you can boost them to make sure you are getting the most bang for your buck. And or if you maybe don't love smoothies or haven't had a lot of them, never really made them at home, you are going to come away with all the information that you need to make sure that they can be an easy part of your routine and you can start playing around with some of these combos yourself. So let's start by talking about what are the building blocks that go into our smoothies. So we know all the components that we want to make sure we're hitting to make sure that we're getting all the fuel our body needs and are going to actually feel full after. This is a big thing I see a lot of times with smoothies is, sure, it might be delicious and great, but if you're hungry again in an hour, that's not fun. So we're going to talk about what are all the components we need to go into a smoothie to make sure that we're like, yes, we want it to be delicious and all these things, but making sure we're actually getting a complete meal out of it and all the things that we need in there to fuel our bodies and our activity and all of our training. So what are the building blocks of a balanced smoothie? We've got our protein in there, and we're going to talk about all of these. We're going to make sure that we get some fat in there. And these are the two that I find are most overlooked. A lot of times when I'm working with people, they're like, oh, I make this smoothie and it's great, but I'm hungry right away. Protein and fat are really, really important additions. So we're going to be talking about different ways to incorporate that to make sure it actually does fill you up. Some fiber. So we're going to be talking about this as well, different ways to add in fiber, but this is a really important component when it comes to a balanced meal. So we want to make sure that we're getting that in our smoothies as well. And then because it's a smoothie, we're going to need some liquid in there, right? We need time to allow it to come all together. So those are going to be the 4 building blocks we're going to be talking about here. So you know all the components you want to hit. So Let's start with protein. So number one, why we need it in there, it fills you up. And this is like I said, one of the things I noticed missing a lot from people's smoothies is they just don't have a source of protein in there. They don't have something in there that can help fill them up. So protein is really important if we want our smoothies to actually fill us up for more than 30 minutes at a time and actually maybe sustain us through activities and through a busy day. Definitely want to make sure we get protein in there. Also really important for energy levels and appetite. When we're including protein in our smoothies, that helps with blood sugar balance, which means that our cravings and our appetite will feel a little bit more steady through the day, and more steady energy as well. So we don't get, a big energy crash, things like that. So protein is really helpful with that. And also really important in terms of our athletic performance. We want that for the muscle growth and recovery and tissue repair, like all those hard workouts we're doing. If we want to make sure that our muscles are able to properly repair themselves and grow, and all these other components that go into feeling our best when we are, involved in a sport or activity, protein is really important for that. So lots of reasons to include protein in our smoothies there. So we definitely want to make sure we're hitting this one. So what are some ways that we can include protein? So there's a bunch of different ways. Again, smoothies are so customizable. Some people love to have something like a protein powder, like a dense source of protein that we can put in, but there's also ways that we can sort of piece together a good amount of protein in a smoothie. So it really is a choose your own adventure. So protein powder, like I said, is a great way to add protein to your smoothie. Collagen, which is basically just a different kind of protein powder. You can get like an unflavored collagen protein. It's just a type of protein that our body really likes. Really, really good for our tissue health, our joints, our like our bones, things like that. So collagen, really, really good protein option as well. Hemp seeds and chia seeds. So these are great. Obviously not quite as dense a source as, say, a scoop of protein powder, but definitely a great way to boost protein. Like just 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds has almost 10 grams of protein. So that's really good. So adding in some hemp seeds and chia seeds. I also really like chia seeds in smoothies because they help with texture too. They can help thicken things out, but we'll talk about that after. But hemp seeds, chia seeds are great. Greek yogurt. If dairy works for your body, Greek yogurt is a great way to add protein. It's a great source and gives you good bang for your buck in terms of amount of protein. Also, different types of milk can be a protein source as well. So not necessarily like an almond or an oat milk, unless it's fortified with protein. Those aren't super protein rich, but dairy milk and soy milk do have a good amount of protein in there. So if you were using, a dairy or a soy milk as the base and maybe a couple tablespoons of hemp seeds, like that would start to add up to a good amount of protein. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a scoop of protein powder. Of course, if you like that, that's awesome. But there's all these different ways to build it in. So like I said, if you used, this dairy milk as your liquid base, that would add some protein. If you use some hemp seeds in there, it would really start to add up. Same goes for nut butters. So nut butters are also a source of fat, and we're going to talk about that, but there is some protein in there as well. So I think 2 tablespoons of peanut butter has like 8 grams of protein in it. So again, pretty good. That's a good starting point for protein intake. And same goes for other nuts and seeds. While they are a source of fat, they do also include some protein. So maybe we want that big scoop of protein powder, or maybe we want to use the Greek yogurt where, we're getting 20 to 30 grams of protein right off the bat. Or maybe we just want to be able to kind of build those things together where it's like, okay, we get, 5 grams or so of protein from like a tablespoon of peanut butter, and we get a few grams of protein from our hemp seeds and a few grams of protein from our liquid base. Like there's all these different ways to add in protein. So it doesn't necessarily need to be one dense source, that you can add them up as well. So these are some great options for adding protein into your smoothie. So let's talk about protein powder, because I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about it. So what to look for with a protein powder if you want to use it. By no means do you have to. This is just an option if you're looking for something like that, or if you're already using one and you're not sure if it's the right fit for you. We'll just talk a little bit about it. So in terms of protein powder, what do we want to look for? Well, the first thing is we want to look for something that makes sense for your body and feels good for you. So really common protein powder that's usually really affordable and really easily available in like grocery stores, things like that, is whey protein powder. So this is a byproduct of dairy. And so if dairy works for your body, whey protein might work great for you. So you could definitely use something like that. But if dairy does not work for your digestion, if it gives you an upset stomach, does not feel good for your body, then we might want to avoid a whey protein. And other good options could be maybe a soy protein, depending on if that feels good for your body. When it comes to plant-based protein powders, like a brown rice, pea protein, and hemp protein are all really common to see as well. So it's really just finding what works for you and also where your preference is. A big thing with protein powders is the flavor, right? And one person may love this one particular protein powder, and another person is like, oh my gosh, this is disgusting, right? So it's important to find something that you like, that you enjoy. So just playing around. But like I said, whey protein is great if dairy works for your body. Otherwise, something, maybe in like the soy or brown rice or pea or hemp might be a better option for you. So that's one thing to look at. What is the protein source, and does that just feel good for my stomach? Do I digest it well? Do I feel good after it? Another thing we want to look for is just added sugar. So depending on the protein powder, sometimes there's a lot of stuff in a protein powder. Sometimes it's very minimal ingredients. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing if there's a lot of stuff in there. Sometimes it's stuff really formulated for athletic performance. So that's not a bad thing. But we do want to look at how much added sugar there is in our protein powder, because we're going to be using it in a smoothie and we're going to be adding all our own stuff. And we want to be able to be in control of like the sweetness level and how much sugar we've got in there and all that. So just keeping an eye on how much sugar is in a protein powder. I ideally like to aim for something less than 5 to 15 grams of carbohydrates. That's what I typically look at on the nutrition label, something that has less than 5 to 15 grams, just so I can get a feel for how much sugar is in there. So that's just something to keep an eye out for. Also, just keeping an eye for anything that might upset your digestion. So you might be totally fine with all protein powders, but I do know some people are more sensitive to, say, sugar alcohols, which can be used a lot, like things like you'll see the OL at the end of the word. So like erythritol, xylitol, maltitol, sorbitol. These are all sugar alcohols that add sweetness without calories. But for some people, they can upset their stomachs. For some people, they work great. So just keeping an eye on how things make you feel. And if you notice there's certain ingredients, maybe sugar alcohols, artificial sweeteners, any sort of allergens, just making sure that there's nothing in there that's going to upset your stomach and not make you feel good. And then obviously budget is a thing too. I think a lot of times people put out these really fancy protein supplements and they're very, very expensive, and they make all sorts of claims about them. And it's not to say that there isn't, great products available at different price points, but just keeping in mind, you do not need to break the bank for a good protein powder. If somebody is trying to say like, oh, you must use this really fancy thing, like it's definitely not necessary to spend, tons and tons and tons of money on a protein powder. So just keeping in mind what fits your budget as well. So those are the general things that we want to look for when it comes to protein powder. Does anybody have questions about the protein powder piece or just the protein? We can take a brief pause for that because I know people have lots of questions around this one.
Looks like we have a few, so I can unmute some people to ask. So Tara, you can ask your question.
Is collagen good for you?
Collagen? Yeah. Yeah, collagen's a great thing to add in. So like I said, really good for like our tissue health, like our nails, our skin, our joints, our hair. Really good for that. It's something that our body like also naturally produces.
My sister drinks that every night before she goes to bed, and I had some before, and I like it. I should start drinking it before bed then.
Yeah, I love collagen. If you have it around and you enjoy it, definitely it's a great ingredient to add in.
Thanks, Tara. Laura, you can ask your question.
Great. I'm on Jenny Craig, so just wondering what is the best smoothie to have when I'm on 17 calories right now.
Can we come back to your question? Because we're going to go through all the recipes. So just keep that, come back to it. And then once we've gone through all the recipes, then we can chat about it.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Laura. Ren, you can go.
Sorry, yeah, I'm Ren Smith. Yeah, it's sort of like a question, sort of. Isn't it protein is like meat and definitely eggs and all that? So I'm just asking.
Yeah, so absolutely, like getting protein, like meat, eggs, absolutely sources of protein. But everything that we just talked about as well also has protein in it. So there's a lot of different ways to get protein.
Yeah, yeah, I just saw on your PowerPoint here. Yeah, for the soy milk. My mom used to drink it. I was just wondering, isn't it good or bad?
It just depends on if soy works well for your body. Like it's definitely not bad unless you're allergic to it. Or there's like a specific reason that you've been told by like a doctor to avoid it. But otherwise, no, soy milk is great.
Awesome. Thank you, Ren. Preston, you can ask your question.
Hi, I want to know, don't drink dairy milk anyways, because I drink the oatmeal because I put my smoothie because I don't drink any dairy product. So is that if you don't drink dairy, if you don't drink any dairy products, milk, is that a good milk to drink if you're not dairy?
Definitely. That's definitely a good one. And we're going to talk about all the different liquids we can use for blending as well. So yeah.
Thanks, Preston. We will do one more person. So Lori Cornwell, you can ask your question.
Okay, hi Erin. Hi Justin. So my mom at home, we have the Juice Plus smoothie, like the protein. And also, I remember from the last peak, Miss Erin, you got me hooked on oat milk.
I'm glad you like it.
Jeez, I love it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, oat milk is
better than
delicious.
Soya milk.
Good. That's awesome.
I've been trying almond milk as well with no sugar.
Perfect. That's awesome. I'm so glad you like it.
It is delicious.
Awesome.
Thank you, Lori. We can move on and then we'll do some questions later.
Sounds great. So that's the general spiel on protein. And we're going to come back to how much to use and all that good stuff. But just so you know, sort of what some good options are, where to start playing, all that good stuff. So let's go on to fat next. So just like I was mentioning, protein's so important to fill us up and actually turn a smoothie from like a fun little snack into an actual meal that fills us up. Protein really important for that. Also fat, making sure we have a source of fat in there. Really important. It fills us up. It's important for that sustained energy and a stable appetite, and really helpful with cravings as well, because it can help with blood sugar stabilization. It's important for nutrient absorption. So making sure that we're, when we're eating our fruits and veggies and all these things, that we're actually able to absorb those nutrients well and use them in our bodies. Fat's really important for that, because there's certain vitamins that we can only absorb if we're making sure we get fat as well. So really important for that. And just overall an important part of balanced nutrition for any sort of athletic performance, making sure that we feel good during our workouts and training and after activities, all that. Fat's just a really important part of a balanced meal. So making sure to include some in our smoothies is definitely something we want to do. So what are some sources that are good for smoothies in terms of fat? So nut butter is probably my favorite one. So like peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, you name the nut butter. I love the nut butter. So it's so good. Obviously, it adds really good flavor. If you love, peanut butter or nut butters in general, it's a great way to add in some good flavor as well. And we're going to be talking all about flavor too. So nut butter is a great way to add some fat into our smoothies. Coconut or coconut milk is a great way. So coconut, like even like shredded, coconut you can add. You could even like sprinkle a little bit on top. Or you can use full fat coconut milk, like the kind that comes in the can where you kind of scoop it out. That's a really good source of fat as well. We can use nuts. We can use seeds. We can even use frozen avocado. So I know this sounds like a weird one, but adding frozen avocado to a smoothie is a great way of adding in some fat and good vitamins and minerals. And it also adds a really nice texture to our smoothies, and you won't taste it. Like it won't make all of a sudden you're drinking it, you're like, oh, this tastes like guacamole. Like you don't taste it at all. It's pretty neutral tasting. And a lot of grocery stores now actually carry like frozen chunks of avocado. So it's a really great way to add some like thickness and creaminess to your smoothie, as well as that fat component. And as I had mentioned kind of in the protein piece as well, some ingredients are going to serve as both, right? So like if we're using, say, a peanut butter or some hemp seeds, things like that, it's going to add a source of fat and protein. So we're kind of hitting two birds with one stone. So just so you don't feel like confused if you see things in both categories. It's just because they include both. Nuts and seeds and nut butters tend to be more concentrated sources of fat, but they definitely do still have that protein in there. And like I said, we can use it to kind of build up the protein content in our smoothie. So that is definitely a component we want to make sure we're paying attention to when we're making our recipes. So fiber, we love fiber. Again, this also is going to help fill us up. Fiber literally can bulk out in our stomachs and in our digestive system. So it feels really filling. It's also going to be our source of carbohydrates. We definitely want to make sure we've got some carbohydrates in our smoothie. It's so important for our energy levels, especially for going into a workout or a lot of activity, or we're coming out of a lot of activity and we need our body to recover. We need to replenish our glycogen stores, our energy stores. We definitely want to make sure that we're getting carbohydrates in, and fiber is a good way to ensure we're doing that. We're getting all sorts of vitamins and minerals that make our cells and our body so happy. And it's also really supportive for our gut health and our digestion. And gut health is so important for us feeling our best, making sure that we are absorbing our nutrients well. It keeps our immune system healthy. It's helpful for hormone balance. So much comes down to our gut health. And fiber really helps support our gut health. So including it is a great thing and is a part of our balanced meals. So some ways to include fiber in our smoothies: fruit and veggies are the biggest ones, are the simplest ones to add in. Lots of fiber, and also we're getting that source of, especially with fruit, we're getting that carbohydrate source as well. So we have that fuel we need. Fresh herbs are a way we can also add in a little bit of fiber. Obviously, we're probably not using huge handfuls of it, but it can be a nice way to add in a little extra boost, like something like mint can be really nice. Or oats. I really love oats in smoothies, depending on what flavors we're working with. It's a great way to make them more filling, add in some good fiber, all that good stuff. So these are some great options in terms of fiber sources for our smoothies. Now, let's talk about putting vegetables in smoothies. Some people love it, some people hate it. So let's talk about how to incorporate them. If you want to, you definitely don't have to. So we're going to be talking about recipes at the end. You definitely don't need to include vegetables in your smoothies if you don't like them at all. If you think that sounds horrible, that's totally fine. Just making sure you're adding that fiber from at least some fruit or the oats, things like that, to make sure we're getting that in there. But vegetables are not, you don't have to put them in. But there are some really great ways to sneak them in where you won't even know they're there. So the one that's most commonly added to a lot of smoothies is spinach. And yes, it makes things very green. So you can definitely tell it's in there visually. But in terms of flavor, especially once you've got some fruit in there, you've maybe got some like nut butter, things like that, these other flavors, you cannot taste it. It doesn't taste like spinach or anything like that. So spinach is a great place to start, even just like a small handful. Again, yes, you will see the color change of your smoothie, but the flavor probably aren't going to notice a huge difference. So that's a great one. If you just want to sneak in a little bit of veggies, that is a great way to do it. Frozen cauliflower rice. So this one sounds weird. You're like, I'm never going to put cauliflower in my smoothie, right? But there's something about this that is also very neutral. So, and you can buy like riced cauliflower in the frozen section. So adding even just a small scoop of it, it adds a great dose of fiber. It makes a nice like it thickens up the smoothie a little bit, makes it a little bit creamier. And again, it's so neutral tasting, you do not know it's there. Again, you don't need to use a ton of it. Like, yeah, if you added like 2 cups of cauliflower rice, it would probably taste like cauliflower. But if you're doing a scoop or 2 of it, like a couple big spoonfuls, you aren't going to taste it at all. And like I said, it can actually add a nice texture. Same goes for frozen shredded zucchini. So this one I really like, especially in the summer when there's lots and lots of zucchini around at like farmers markets and it's all really ripe and delicious. Just shredding up a bunch of it and throwing it in the freezer and adding a couple handfuls of that into a smoothie. It's similar to the cauliflower rice. You don't even know it's there. It's so neutral tasting. So those are definitely some options. Again, spinach is probably the easiest, most common one, but just some, lesser known neutral tasting veggies like cauliflower rice and zucchini can work really well as well. And like I said, you won't really taste it. It can be a really nice way to just sneak in a little bit of veggies, and you don't need to do a ton. If you're curious about adding in vegetables, but are nervous about it, start with just a little bit, like a spoon or 2, or with spinach, like a small little handful, and just see if you notice. Because if you don't notice at all and you can get that little bonus of vegetables, hey, it's a win-win. And then just keeping in mind whether, you're curious about adding it or you see recipes with it you want to try, other veggies are going to add more taste. So things like kale, cucumber, parsley, like these are going to have a green flavor to them. They are going to add flavor to the smoothie. So just keeping an eye on like the first few are really nice and neutral. You're not going to really notice them, but once we start branching out, you will start to taste them, which is not a bad thing, but you want to know that you're going to taste them. So like I said, you definitely don't have to add veggies to your smoothie. We can add fiber in the form of fruit or oats. That works totally fine. But if you're curious of, boosting your veggie intake a little bit, this is definitely a jumping off point for you. So let's talk about liquids. We've talked about our protein, our fat, our fiber. Now we need something to blend it all up with, right? So what base you choose is really going to depend on what you like and also what flavors you're working with, right? Because some things might taste better with certain things and vice versa. So things that can work well, almond milk, like an unsweetened almond milk, is great as a base. Coconut milk works well. Dairy milk, if dairy works well for your body. Same goes for soy. Oat milk is very popular here, which is excellent. Oat milk is delicious. You can even use like an herbal tea if you wanted. You can, shake it up, maybe make like a green tea smoothie or coconut water. We're actually going to talk about a recipe that uses coconut water. So you can kind of see how to use it, but that could add some nice flavor and a little bit extra electrolytes, which is great, especially if we're recovering from exercise. You can also use water as well. That works just fine. So playing around, like usually the ones I use most are just what I have around most. So like oat milk or an unsweetened almond milk are usually the most common, but like in a pinch, I'll throw some water in there and that works just fine, especially if I've got some other things to add creaminess to my smoothie. That works just fine as well. So again, it's just kind of picking depending on what flavor combo sounds best for you and what you have around and what feels good for your body. So, is there any questions with any of the components of a smoothie before we get into making it our own and how to kind of start building our recipes?
Okay, we're getting a few hands up. So Miranda, you can unmute.
I put celery in my smoothie, Erin.
Oh, awesome.
And carrots, because I like when my staff makes them and she puts oranges in it because we want to get rid of all the stuff in our house. So I say, okay, make me a smoothie. And she puts celery in it and carrots and apples and oranges.
That's awesome. Yeah, you can totally use like all sorts of different stuff. This is just like the jumping off point, but yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So many.
And then we put Greek yogurt in for protein.
That sounds great.
0 fat Greek yogurt, and sometimes I put vanilla in for flavor.
Oh, that sounds like a perfect smoothie. I love it.
Yep.
Thanks, Miranda. Kaylee, you can unmute.
Hi.
Hi.
So when I put it on my smoothie, I usually put bananas and almond milk on it on smoothies.
Awesome. I love that combo. I do the same thing.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylee. Alex, you can unmute.
So for your information, I decided to put any fruit in my smoothie.
You don't put fruit in your smoothie, or you do?
I mean, I do know how to make a smoothie by using the fruit and vegetables. It's awesome.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, glad you like it.
Thank you, Alex.
My pleasure.
Danielle, you can unmute.
Hello. What I typically put in my smoothies is fruit juice, frozen fruit, and like Greek yogurt, and like sometimes frozen spinach or whatever fresh veggies we have in the fridge.
That sounds really good. That's awesome.
I also put banana for some extra carbohydrates and potassium.
Yeah. Banana is a great smoothie addition for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Laura, you can unmute.
My question is, with the 4 components that you mentioned, does it matter what order they go in when you make your smoothie?
No, so when I'm blending, I usually like to put liquid in the blender first, just because it makes it easier for the blades to catch everything.
Okay.
So I'll put the liquid in first, but other than that, no, I just kind of toss it all in.
Okay.
Awesome. So let's talk about how to actually take all these components and put them together in a way that makes sense for you. You know, what are the different combos we can make and all that. So one of the first things we want to think about is building a flavor that we actually enjoy. We don't want to drink smoothies that don't taste good, right? So thinking about, you know, what are the protein and fiber things that you're going to use, because that's going to kind of determine the flavor. So typically I find, like, if I'm using a protein powder, especially if it's like a chocolate or a vanilla or a mocha, like those kind of flavors, those are going to pair better with chocolate vanilla type things. Like protein powders lend better to a chocolate vanilla type shake. So using that with like some nut butters and things like that. I tend to not do a lot of like fruity vegetable type flavors of that. I tend to lean more towards like the vanilla chocolate with protein powders. But again, that's not to say you have to. It's just getting familiar with what flavors you like best, because there's definitely protein powders that go just fine in anything. But if you're using something that has that really strong protein powder flavor, and especially if it is vanilla or chocolate flavor, just kind of leaning into those. And we're going to talk about some recipes that work well with that. In terms of berries and tropical fruits, those go really well with like hemp protein, hemp seeds, and other nuts. Greek yogurt works really well with berries and tropical fruits. Citrus fruits as well. You'd mentioned oranges before. That's a great one. Yogurt can work well with that, or an unflavored collagen. So the difference between a collagen powder and a protein powder is protein powder tends to have more of a flavor. Whereas if you use a small scoop of collagen, it tends, especially like an unflavored collagen, it just kind of disappears in there. So it can kind of go into anything. So that works well there. Banana is like the smoothie go-to for if you're ever unsure. Adding in a frozen banana is a great way to mix and match all sorts of things. Like it goes well with the chocolate vanilla type flavors. It can add some creaminess and sweetness and thickness, and you can make like a chocolate shake type situation. It also goes great with berries and tropical fruits. Like banana kind of goes with anything, just because it is more neutral, but it's going to add some sweetness and creaminess. So when we get to recipes, we can kind of talk about some different combos, but just some food for thought there. And in general, best rule of thumb, if you know you don't think those things, you would like those things on their own together, don't put them in a smoothie together. Other ways to add flavor, we talked about fresh herbs, so like mint or even basil is really nice, which sounds sort of different, but basil goes really well with berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. It just adds a little extra something. You don't need a lot, just a little pinch is really nice. You can use spices like cinnamon or ginger, especially if we're doing something like a more like vanilla kind of flavor, like cinnamon would be really nice. Or if we're using citrus fruits, like you were describing, like the carrots, and then we've got the oranges, something like ginger could go really, really well in there, even a little bit of turmeric. Also just playing around with different liquid bases to see what you like. Maybe certain smoothies you love with your oat milk and certain smoothies you'd rather a bit thinner, and you want like some water with it. So just kind of playing around to see what you like can really change it up. And then also keeping in mind sweeteners. So especially if we aren't using something like a banana in a smoothie, berries are awesome, but they might not make the smoothie as sweet as you want it to taste. So being able to add in a drizzle of honey or maple syrup can work really well just to sweeten it up a bit. Medjool dates are really, like a pitted medjool date is a really good way to add a bit of sweetness, and it also adds a little bit of extra fiber in there as well. So you can add a couple of those, or you can go for a calorie-free sweetener, like an artificial sweetener, like stevia we could use. You can use monk fruit. There's all sorts of different options depending on what just works for your body. So don't be afraid to play around with those options as well, because sometimes, you know, we've got this great base for a smoothie and it just needs a little extra something. So don't be afraid to add a little bit of extra sweetness if that makes your smoothie extra delicious for you. So texture is really important. Something else we want to think about with smoothies as well. In general, it's nicer when they're a little bit thicker and creamier. Like I said, bananas are a go-to with that, and frozen bananas in particular, and frozen fruit in general is going to add more thickness, more creaminess to a smoothie than fresh fruit. Fresh fruit is great in smoothies. You could absolutely use fresh fruit in smoothies. It just adds different texture-wise. So just to be aware of that. Like I always take my bananas and I let them ripen, and then I always just have a bag that I throw them in the freezer because I prefer frozen bananas in my smoothie. It makes them taste more like milkshakes to me than just the fresh ones. So just something to keep in mind, if you like that sort of thicker, creamier texture, going with frozen fruit can be really helpful, and particularly that frozen banana. Adding a handful or two of ice can really help too if you want things a little bit thicker. I mentioned the frozen banana, but frozen avocado, like I had talked about earlier too, can add some really nice thickness and creaminess and is very neutral tasting. Raw cashews. So you do need, if you're going to use this one, you do need to make sure you have like a high-speed blender, like a Vitamix or a Blendtec. But a small handful of raw cashews can add a really nice, like thick richness to your smoothie, especially say if you were doing this one and you had water as your base, this would make it seem like you had like a really creamy base to it. So that could be a fun one to play with. You can also just play with how much liquid you're using. You know, sometimes we want something really thick. Sometimes we want something a little bit thinner that we can sip on for a while. So just playing around with the amount of liquid to see what you like. So those are the general things just to think about if you are inventing your own recipes. What are the flavors we want in there? Like what's going to pair well together? What do we like? What are some different ways we can change it up? And what's the texture situation, you know? And these are just some ways you can play with those variables. So, oh, and yeah, just thinking about flavors you already enjoy, you know, maybe you've had an awesome smoothie at like Jugo Juice or Booster Juice or something like that. And you could use that as inspiration. Be like, oh, I love this one smoothie from there. I'm going to try making something similar at home. So you can think about that. You can think just of flavors you like together in general. Like if you really love chocolate and peanut butter, you can absolutely make a chocolate peanut butter smoothie happen. So just thinking about flavors you already like and playing around with that. You can also look at recipes, you know, for different flavor inspiration, just to see kind of what other people are making. Sometimes that's the best way to get creative and inspired, and just playing around with it and experimenting and finding your go-to recipes and finding something that you love. So there is also some stuff we want to consider if we want to be making smoothies ahead. So like I said, smoothies are great for convenience and great for on the go. And there's a few little prep tips that you want to keep in mind if you are trying to maybe prep them ahead or be able to have them, you know, maybe you want to make them the night before and have them ready. So just some things to keep in mind. So prep ahead tips. One of my favorite things that you can do, especially if you want if you want a smoothie every day and you're busy and you don't want to have to actually like pull all the ingredients out every single day, making little individual smoothie bags is a great way to make them a little bit more convenient. So just taking little freezer Ziploc bags and putting, you know, say the fruit in there that you want, the protein you want, the fat that you want in there. Just don't put the liquid in there, just those first pieces. And then just keeping those in the freezer. And then each morning you can just pull out your bag, plop it in your blender, add your liquid, and blend it up and you're good to go. So that's one way you can prep them ahead just to make it a little bit more convenient for you. If you do want to blend ahead, so you can blend your smoothie ahead of time, say like the night before to have for breakfast, or maybe earlier in the day to have for a snack later. But just keep in mind, especially if you are using lots of fruits and veggies, the fiber in there is going to thicken. So it's going to thicken as it sits. And if you use if you blend it with the regular amount of liquid you're used to having it with, it might turn into pudding by the next day or by the time you have it. So just keeping in mind, if you are making it ahead of time, that you just want to use probably a little bit more liquid with it because it is going to thicken up. So that's just one thing to consider. And then for on the go, I love mason jars for smoothies. Obviously, there's shaker bottles and things like that you can throw them in, but mason jars just work really, really well for smoothies, especially on the go, because you can seal them up and give them a good shake just to make sure everything is still nice and blended together. So that's a great way to bring them with you. So just some little prep ahead tips, make them a little bit more convenient. So this is, there we go. So this is kind of our DIY smoothie formula. So we know all the building blocks of a smoothie now. We know all the components we want to be including. How much should we be adding of each? So this is just a jumping off point, but this is a general guideline that can get you started. And all the things I've listed underneath are just examples. But so for protein, in general, aiming for 10 to 30 grams is awesome because that's going to be just more filling for us. It's going to make sure that we are feeling satisfied for or until our next meal. So 10 to 30 grams is a great jumping off point. And like we've talked about, you can do that in one swoop with like a scoop of protein powder that gives you like 30 grams protein, or, a big couple scoops of Greek yogurt, or maybe you want to build it together, like, by using some hemp seeds, a bit of nut butter, a bit of dairy milk, something like that, and kind of build those pieces in together. So there's a lot of different options, but that's a general jumping off point. If you're curious about how much protein to include, that'll be an amount that makes you feel full. For fiber, anywhere from 1 to 2 cups. I mean, you can definitely add more if you want. This is just a jumping off point. And this can include both the fruits, the veggies, the oats, things like that. So 1 to 2 cups is a really good jumping off point. For fat, 1 to 2 tablespoons is a really good place to start with in terms of the amount. That's going to give you enough so that you feel full. And then for your liquid base, again, this is going to be really dependent on how thick or thin you want your smoothie, what kind of things you're using in there. But 1 to 2 cups is generally a good guideline. So this is just sort of the general smoothie formula. How much of each thing should we include? But like I said, it's just a jumping off point. You want to play around with portions and amounts to find what's really going to work best for you. So maybe you find, you need more protein than that to feel full. That's great. Add more. Maybe you find that you want to add a ton more fruits and veggies. That's awesome. Like, play around. That just gives you a general starting point. If you have no idea what you want to be putting in your smoothie or how much, that just gives you something to start with. But ideally, especially if it's a meal, you want to feel full for 2 to 5 hours, right? So if you make your smoothie and it's delicious and it's awesome, but you're finding you're hungry again really quickly, then maybe we want to bump up the protein a bit. Maybe we want to bump up the fat a little bit. Or maybe you make something, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the most filling thing. Like, I can never eat again. Then maybe we want to just decrease the amounts a little bit. So play around with it. Like I said, that's a jumping off point, definitely not hard and fast rules. And you absolutely can also make smaller snack size versions. Like the ratios I'm giving you there are something that's going to fill you up for more of a meal. But absolutely, if you just need something kind of in between lunch and dinner to sort of tide you over, you can definitely reduce those amounts down a little bit in each category to make it more of a snack size. So let's get into some recipes. So these are just some ideas, and I can definitely make sure to send these along so that you guys have them in the group, so you don't have to worry about writing them down or anything. I'll make sure that they get emailed along. So chocolate raspberry almond is something kind of fun, a little bit different. This is a good example of something where it's like, ooh, let's play with some fun flavors that, maybe we didn't think of or we haven't seen at a booster juice or something like this. So this is one that I really love for that. So this one's got raspberries in it, We've got the almond butter, the chia seeds, half a scoop of protein powder. So you can kind of see how we're building in protein from a few different sources there. We've got the almond butter, we've got the chia seeds, we've got the protein powder. For fat, we've got both the almond butter and the chia seeds. So it's all kind of working together. And again, those chia seeds add a really nice thickness to smoothies as well. Actually, I should have mentioned that with the thickening part as well. But chia seeds are really great because as they sit in liquid, they absorb that liquid and they thicken up a bit, so they can make for a really nice creamy smoothie. A little bit of cocoa powder in there, so not so much to make it like chocolate, but just a hint of it is really nice. And cocoa powder is a very underrated smoothie ingredient. It's great to add a little chocolate flavor. And then for this one, you can just use some unsweetened almond milk or whatever milk you wanted. Like oat milk would be great in here, soy milk would be great, dairy milk, all those things. So this is just a good, just kind of a good balanced smoothie. This one, it's adding that nice thickness texture from the frozen fruit and the chia seeds. So just a nice change of pace if you're used to banana bases as your smoothie. So this is one great option that we can try out. The Green Monster smoothie. So this is my favorite sort of intro to green smoothies. If you're somebody who's like, I do not know how I feel about putting vegetables in my smoothie, or I don't know if I'm going to love having a green smoothie, this is a really good place to start because the banana and the peanut butter are going to be what you taste. It tastes just like a, peanut butter banana kind of shake. You won't taste the smoothie at all. And because we have those stronger flavors in there and that pinch of cinnamon as well, it really just makes for this like sweet, nutty, creamy smoothie. You don't even taste the spinach at all. These ingredients all really mask anything that would come out, even though the spinach is already pretty neutral in smoothies. So this is a really good jumping off point if you're curious about green smoothies, or if you love just something nice and, simple, you love banana flavors or peanut butter kind of flavors, this is a great one. We've got our protein coming here. Again, kind of that combo from the hemp seeds and the nut butters. We've got some extra fiber in there with the spinach. And again, you could sub whatever milk you wanted in here. You could do dairy milk, you could do oat milk, that would all work well. But this is a really good intro smoothie if you want something that tastes really good and are nervous about the green smoothie aspect. This is a great place to start with green smoothies. It's nice and simple and tastes delicious. Okay, oatmeal cookie smoothie. So like I was saying, like protein powders, especially if you've got a vanilla or chocolate protein powder, they tend to taste better in sort of vanilla-y type flavors or chocolatey type flavors. So this is a really good one, cookie type flavor that would pair well with protein. And this smoothie is really, really great for after a hard workout, or if you're trying to build muscle, things like that, because it's going to have that good dose of protein from the protein powder there. Got that frozen banana in there, which is really nice to add that creaminess. This one's like kind of like a milkshake. This one's a real treat. I love this one. Whatever milk you wanted in there. You can absolutely leave the sea salt out. It just adds a little bit of flavor. And the cinnamon is really nice in there too. And again, you can add ice cubes if you want it really, really thick. And we're getting our fiber here from our oats. So if you don't like veggies, this is a good one as well. Next, we have a Pina Colada smoothie. So this one does have kale in it, but you can swap it for spinach. Like I said, kale has a little bit more of a flavor, but I just wanted to give you an example of some different ways to include the veggies. So if you wanted something more neutral, just swap it for spinach, or you can definitely leave it out too, because we're also going to be getting fiber from our pineapple and our banana here. So just an option if you want a non-green version of this that is doable. You can just leave out the kale, swap it for spinach, whichever you prefer. But we've got frozen pineapple and banana, so we've got some nice sweet tropical flavors. For protein on this one, I'm using the collagen powder, but you could absolutely do hemp seeds with this one. You could even do like some Greek yogurt with this one as well. We kind of blend nicely to that because we're adding that creaminess with the coconut milk too. So this is a nice like tropical, coconutty, pineapple-y flavor. We've also got coconut water in here, which is really great, especially for after a really sweaty workout. If you've done something really high impact or a long activity, this is a really good one. Coconut water is kind of like nature's Gatorade. It has lots of electrolytes in it. So this would be really replenishing for your body as well. And for the sweetener, this is just if you want it, if you find it's not sweet enough as it is, but again, is totally optional. So this is a nice one that you can have green if you want it, but definitely you can leave the kale out if you just want these flavors without the green. And then the last one I wanted to share was a berry burst smoothie. So this is a nice example of using avocado for the creaminess instead of, say, like a banana. This is going to add a nice thickness to it. We've got that source of fat there. This is also just nice and simple. It's really a short list of ingredients here. So we've got whatever berries you want. I often like buying just that berry blend that has like strawberries and raspberries and blueberries in it. That's really good, but any berries would be good in this. We've got the frozen avocado. Greek yogurt is going to make it nice and creamy, whatever milk you like. And then probably just some sweetener, just because this one doesn't have really much sweetness to it. The berries won't add much in terms of sweetness. So if you're somebody who really likes that sweeter flavor, you may want to sweeten this one up a bit, but this is a nice filling option as well. So that's what I have for recipes for you. Do we have any questions about smoothies?
Hey, Preston, you can unmute.
Yeah, I know you can. I know I always use when I do my making, if I bake or something, if I do baking, different stuff, I use can you is it Pinterest okay? You know Pinterest is right. You can you look at recipes. I'm gonna check that stuff out. I might look at some recipes I don't. The one you guys didn't said today, I was gonna try that and see if they have stuff in ones I like.
That's a great idea. That's a great way to get inspired for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Preston. Kayla, you can unmute.
Hi, Erin. My question is, what happens if you don't like something you want to put into your smoothie?
Well, can you give me an example?
Like if you're like allergic to something, say, or something.
Oh, so if you're allergic to something, definitely don't put it in your smoothie.
Okay.
Yeah. If like all these examples and recipes and everything are all just jumping off points, but if there's something there where it's like, oh, I'm allergic to that, definitely don't include it.
Oh, I'm not allergic, but I was just asking, like, just in case somebody is. Like,
oh,
is there
yeah.
other options you can use, or
like what kind of ingredient are you looking to substitute?
like I don't like coconut water or coconut milk.
Oh yeah, so I just would stay away from any of the coconut ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Kayla. Cassie, you can unmute.
My question is, Erin, what happens if you work at a place and it's peanut free and you can't put like almond butter or peanut butter in it? What's another great like substitute for that?
Yeah, so if you're in like a nut-free environment, there's something you like using a seed butter can often work. So I think it's called sun butter. It's like a sunflower seed nut butter basically, but that one is usually really it's really popular for nut-free environments because it's sunflower seeds. So that's what I would use there. And it does, obviously it has a different taste than peanut butter does, but it does still add that nuttiness and things like that. So you could definitely use something like a sun butter.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Cassie. Tara, you can unmute.
I have two questions. My first one, I have tried cauliflower rice and I like it.
That's awesome. I love cauliflower rice.
Yes. Have you ever tried cauliflower mashed potatoes?
Oh, I sure have. They're my favorite.
Yeah. And I drink orange juice and every morning, like at nighttime.
Awesome.
It plus has sugar in it, and I don't know if it will be good to drink it before I go to sleep at night. I don't know if that will be good or not.
It depends how much you're drinking. Like if you're having a really, really big glass of it, it might be too much sugar for before
It's
bed.
a small bottle of it. It's a small one.
If it's just a small amount, as long as you don't find it's interrupting your sleep, like if you fall asleep okay and everything, then it's probably fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Tara. Miranda, you can ask your question.
So what if I wanted to make like a peanut butter banana one from Booster Juice? Because I go to Jungle Juice or Booster Juice and I want them to give me the recipes and they go, I can't give you the recipes, it's secret. And I'm going,
the worst. Well, I would start with those as the base. So I don't know the recipe, so or like I haven't had that one, so I couldn't say for sure. But
I recommend it, Erin. It's really good to try the peanut butter banana.
I'm definitely gonna go check it out for sure. But yeah, I would start with those as your base. Like start with frozen banana and peanut butter, and then just kind of playing around with adding different kinds of like protein to it, just to see what you find pairs best with it. That'll be kind of your best jumping off point. And because you've got the peanut butter and banana, we're already hitting like a bit of protein and fat and that fiber. So we're already well on our way in terms of the building blocks. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
Thanks, Miranda. Laura, you can unmute.
For making smoothies, is it best to like create a recipe of your own, or is it best to follow one that you already know?
If you have one, like if you have a recipe that you follow that you really love, then you can definitely stick with that. I would just make sure that it contains those components we talked about, right? Making sure we've got that protein and fat and fiber in there. But if it includes that and you have a recipe you love, like absolutely follow it. It's more just if you want to mix up your own, or maybe you want to use up stuff in your freezer, or you just feel like changing it up, that's when it's fun to play. But if you have recipes you love, definitely use those.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. Danielle, you can unmute.
I really liked the smoothie and Malito the peach pleasure, and I've actually created it at home. But I'm just wondering, whereabouts you find like the protein collagen powder and like the hemp seeds that you were talking about?
Yeah, so collagen you can usually find at most grocery stores now. You just have to go to like the pharmacy section where they have like protein powders and stuff. That's usually where you find them, is kind of like at the edge of the pharmacy section.
Sure.
That's where you'll find, wherever you find the protein powder is where you would find collagen. But I know that Save On has it. I know Superstore has it. I'm pretty sure it's fairly available. And then hemp seeds, sometimes you need to find them in like, you know how there will be like the natural section or like the organic section. Sometimes that's where they're hiding. So checking out there is where you would find hemp seeds.
Okay.
Thanks, Danielle.
Powders are in the same section as the collagen.
The protein powders, yeah, they would be in the same at the grocery store. You would find them at like the edge of the pharmacy kind of section. Usually is where they're kept.
Yeah. Great session, Erin. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Danielle. We're going to do two more. So Akira, you can unmute.
What do you do if you have acid reflux?
So I would see how it affects you, like how, because sometimes like acid reflux is affected by the volume of how much we eat, right? Or like the kinds of food. So all I would just pay attention to is the size of the smoothie, and if there's any ingredients going in there that make it worse, so to speak, right? So it's more just paying attention to what volume of smoothie feels best for you, and if there's any ingredients that just set it off. That's all I would pay attention to there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. And for the last question, Alex, you can unmute.
If I may ask, would you like to try the smoothies that involved berries, even the cherries?
Oh yeah, I love cherries in smoothies.
That was my suggestion all along.
Yes, yeah, cherry, especially like if you add like a little scoop of cocoa powder to it too, it makes like a chocolate cherry smoothie. It's really tasty.
Oh
The
yeah.
cherries are a great addition.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome.
Thank you, Alex. Awesome. So that's going to be it for questions for tonight. Erin, thank you again for coming out and doing a session for us. I know I really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and I'm sure the athletes did too. We do have a password for tonight. I believe it is St. Paul. I'm just going to double check really quick.
It is,
here.
yes.
Awesome. St. Paul is your password for tonight. So I will put that in the chat. I believe Erin is joining one more time later in Peak, so make sure you keep an eye out for another Peak Eats and we'll learn some more amazing stuff. But other than that, have yourself a fantastic evening and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.